We have a very interesting CIO panel in a short while from now. But before that, let me tell you that we have a spotlight session, and one of my favorite humans is going to come in. I think she's a favorite with all of you. She's a climate warrior, Bhumi Pednikar, and she has been advocating for climate change. How many of you here are a strong believer that climate change is really happening? How many of you think? Can you raise your hands, please? Wow. So climate change is real and it's happening. I come from the northeast of India. I am from Guwahati, from Assam. And let me tell you, I'm very sad. I'm very sad to share something with you, that in the name of development, 8,000 trees have been cut down in the past couple of years. 8,000 trees. And those trees which had actually made Assam, the northeast, a place where we used to have a lot of rains, the place used to be very fertile. The entire thing has now changed. The climate has changed, the weather has changed, and the city has become one of the most polluted. Guwahati city has become one of the most polluted. I'm sorry to share this, but this is real. And recently we had a major thing happening. We have a beautiful place out there. It's a pond. It's a very old pond. It's called Digholi Pukhuri. And there were some trees which were more than 200 years old. And there was, again in the name of development, the government was trying to cut down those trees. And guess who came along? All the young Turks of our city came there, caught hold of the roads, sang songs, wrote poetry, became very, very vocal. Two of our boys are still in jail because they had a poster out there where they spoke about going against the government and going for the trees. So they're still in jail and they still haven't been out. So this is what, climate change is real and we have to accept it, even though somebody has to go to jail for that. I have a little poem it's not a poem on climate change though. I am celebrating my 19th year with ABP. I came in and joined ABP as an anchor in 2005 when Mr. Didi Purkast invited me way back in Guwahati when we were having NICT 2005, and since then this has become my family. ABP has become my family. I just love every person in this team and the way they work. So I have a small little poem here that I would like all of you to hear, though the setup has already been done. I would like all of you to hear a small little poem which I have. By the way, I didn't compose it. It was Perplexity who composed it for me. Since I'm in an AI conference, I actually asked Perplexity to do this for me, so it goes like this. In the vibrant heart of Kolkata, where dreams take flight, Infocom 2024 shines a beacon of light. For 23 years, ABP has led the way, uniting minds and visions, come what may. Here is to the team members. Your dedication and passion fuel this grand affair. Each effort, each moment shows how much you care. From planning to execution, your spirits soar high. Together we rise, reaching for the sky. And to the officers of ABP, the ones who are sitting at the helm, with wisdom and guidance, you steer our course true. Your leadership inspires all that we do. In every discussion and every bold plan, you shape our future, guiding our clan. As we gather to celebrate innovation and thoughts, let's cherish the lessons that Infocom has brought. From ICT leaders to visionaries bright, we forgo connections that ignite the night. So here's to the journey, the stories we share, to the friendships we nurture, and the dreams we dare. With gratitude and pride, let our voices resound. In unity and purpose, our strength will be found. Together we thrive in this dynamic space, crafting a legacy that time won't erase. Cheers to ABP and all who partake in this grand celebration. Together we make. And for all of you who are here, once again, I'd like to say thank you, a deep gratitude that all of you have been here since the morning and you have been a part of it. Please come in here again by tomorrow. Please be here by 9:30 because we are going to start our session by 9:45 when we have a very big surprise for you. So I'm sure you know who's going to come in, but I still won't say it. So you must come in and enjoy every moment in Infocom Kolkata 2024. And ladies and gentlemen, in the meanwhile, while we wait for this session to start, we have something to show you. So you can look at the screen and you can enjoy.
It's easy to talk, give opinions, to say what should be done. But to do is different. Do is hard. Do is determination, motivation, dedication. Do is decision. Do beats can't. Trust DXC to do technology that innovates. And let's build an AI-powered world together. It's easy to talk, give opinions, to say what should be done. But to do is different. Do is hard. Do is determination, motivation, dedication. Do is decision. Do beats can't. Trust DXC to do technology that innovates. And let's build an AI-powered world together.
So yes, we are waiting for one of our speakers to come in. Would anyone here who had raised his hands or her hands would like to say something about climate change? Anyone? Because we have this spotlight session, with this stardom session in fact, where Bhumi Padnikar is coming in and she's going to be speaking about many things. We still don't know what she's going to speak about, but I hope that she's going to be speaking about climate change. Of course, our speaker is here. I've got the signal that we can start off with this session. And I would like to tell you that we have this very interesting CISO panel, Data Privacy and Data for Good. I would like to request the chairperson and moderator, Mr. Nitin Jhunjhunwala, partner cybersecurity, Deloitte, to kindly come onto the stage and take a seat. And a huge round of applause for him, please, ladies and gentlemen, as I welcome Mr. Nitin Jhunjhunwala onto the stage. Good afternoon to you, sir, and a warm welcome. Our speakers are wonderful, so I'll tell you why. I have with us Mr. Manoj Dhingra, co-founder and director, Stellar Information Technology Limited. May I request you, sir, to come onto the stage and take your seat, and a huge round of applause for him. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to you, sir. We have with us Mr. Suprakash Guha, CISO Lumina Datamatics. A warm welcome to you, sir. A round of applause from this side. I can't hear any applauses coming from the middle and my left. Good afternoon, sir, and a warm welcome to you. We have with us Mr. Hilal Lone, CISO Razorpay. May I request you, sir, to kindly come onto the stage and take a seat. Good afternoon, and a hearty welcome to you. Be careful. Mr. Avesh Malik, Technical Head, Northeast India and Middle East, Radware. May I request you, sir, to kindly come onto the stage. And a round of applause. Warm welcome to you and good afternoon, sir. I tell you, this panel is going to be very interesting. And finally, we have Mr. Sandeep CV, Transformation Architect, Scaler, to kindly come onto the stage and take his seat. A round of applause to Mr. Sandeep CV as he takes his seat on the dais. Thank you for being here, and good afternoon. And I hand over the session to our moderator and speaker. Sir.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you, ABP, for hosting us and giving us this opportunity to have this wonderful panel. Coming to the topic for today, which is data privacy and data for good. And as we all know, data is the new oil, which is much more powerful and impactful. And in today's world of digital transformation, where data is shaping the decisions we take or delivering the innovations we do, and also responsible for our collective future. So it becomes really important for us to see how data is impacting everyone's of our life. But with this digital transformation comes a lot of issues around security, privacy, and trust. And I'm sure with our eminent panelists today, we'll be able to ponder upon a few of those areas and take their perspectives and insights. So thank you all for this wonderful session. Suprakash, first coming to you and looking into data as a topic which covers around privacy and how organizations are dealing with data. While there is a good aspect of data where we are able to take a lot of benefits out of how data can be used, there are aspects around security and privacy. So how do you think organizations are dealing with this paradox of using data and also at the same time have to be cautioned about their concerns around security?
Very good. Thank you, Nitin. It's a very interesting question. Yeah. So the data is for good. So if we can use the data in a good way, that is always a beneficial. And for anything we speak, like AI, machine learning, everywhere the data is there. But with that, as you told rightly, the protection of data is also very important. Now we have huge data. Now the what to be protected, what not to be protected, that is very important thing. For that, the first what you have to do the data classification. So we know there are some data which can be applied in the public domain. There can be some data which is internal. There can be some data which is critical, and there can be some data which is private data. So based on this data classification, we have to take the, we have to do the risk assessment and the mitigation plan. So that is the first approach. So once the classification is done on the data postures, we have to do the proper risk assessment before taking any technology or solution. So we should not jump to a solution immediately. So we have to go by FMEA or the asset-based risk assessment. We have to see what is the severity of the data leakage, what is the occurrences of the data leakage, and what is the detection mechanism in case of any failure happen. So with the severity, detection, and the occurrences, we have to come out with the risk parameter number, which is called RPN. So with this RPN number, we have to prioritize the risk and take the mitigation plan. So that is the approach what we should follow. And for the mitigation also, there are some processes. Like everything, we cannot put a technological solution. So if the risk is high, we can mitigate it with some solution like MDR solution or the any XDR solution or the IPS, IDS. That is the mitigation part. Data can be transferred. The risk can be transferred to a third-party agency. Basically, the cyber security. We can take some cyber security or insurance. By that, we can transfer the risk, or we have to absorb the risk by increasing our risk appetite. So that is the whole approach what we should follow before getting some solution or something. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Suprakash. I think well articulated in terms of what we should do with the data and how to protect it. And taking cue from that, Manoj, if I can come to you in terms of the data life cycle as a whole, and we always hears about the word there's always a life after death, and I'm sure that's what true for data when it comes to you. In terms of how even after the data is not live, how can it be risky and how can you protect that?
So thank you, Nitin. Now the thing is, everyone, whether it is individual or businesses, they actually, whenever they're generating a data, whenever they are producing a data, they take utmost care about its protection, about its privacy. But when it comes to the end of the life of the data or the hardware in which the data is being stored, generally it has been seen that it's being kept at the mercy of IT people to do whatever is the best. But the ideal thing would be that it needs to be kept at rest. Until unless that data is not kept at rest, there is a chance of data breach. Because once the data is being used and now it is not required, it's being not very well seen where it is being kept. And if it goes to the wrong hands, certainly it can be misused. So there should be a clear policy, in the organizations, that when the data is not in use, or it needs to be put at rest, or the hardware needs to be put at rest, the data must be wiped with a certified data eraser so that there is an assurance that the data would not leak anywhere.
Sure, I think that's more important to know how a data which has been used can be more destructive or harmful than a live data also. And that's where I think we, most of us miss that importance of data being at rest. Hilal, coming to you in terms of the data which you deal or as part of your organization, I'm sure the most sensitive, the financial transactions happening through some of the channels which you deal with. And it's much more dangerous to deal with such kind of data where chances of a data loss or a insecurity is there. So how do you see these environments coming across with so much of data loss happening from various cyber attacks, threat actors? How do you think people are putting trust on channels and solutions like yours to ensure that data is safe and secure when they are transacting with you?
Yeah, so first of all, good evening to all, and thank you, Infocom team, for having us. So all the data that we have is going to be sensitive. We are a fintech, so we cannot have data that's not sensitive. So as you correctly mentioned, the financial data, the transaction data, the PII data that we actually collect, the personal information that we collect, all of it actually demands that we have the stringent controls in place to make sure data security and data privacy is actually maintained. So in order for us to basically do our business, right, so the first principle is that we actually build and retain the trust of our customers or consumers, right? So because without the trust of the customers or consumers, obviously we cannot run our business at all. And we cannot afford a data breach because it's obviously going to be not only negative with respect to reputation, but also it's going to be very difficult to explain it to regulators, right? So, okay, what happened? Why did you not do your due diligence? And things like that. So in order for us to make sure that, okay, we have basically the data security and privacy controls in place, we always do different types of assessments, right? So we do privacy impact analysis, or we do basically whatever activities that we do in our organization, we see, okay, how the data is actually being collected, how it is transported, how it is consumed, and how it is stored, and how it is archived, right? So all of those things are actually going to be very important. And in order for us to basically have full visibility and full control of all the data processing activities in our organization, it demands that we have strategic initiatives around it. And that's always going to be a combination of our tooling that we have, the technology that we have in place. I think Manoj just talked about basically having tools in place that can take care of your data that's going to be there and ensuring that, okay, even if you don't need it anymore, so what do you do with that? So that's one aspect of basically making sure that, okay, the data controls are actually in place. Apart from that, for us in fintech in particular, a lot of these things are governed by basically our data governance programs. So the data governance programs actually includes basically your how basically we include data that's only going to be used for a specific use case, for a specific purpose. So we cannot just consume data and use it for whatever purpose we need. because that's where the consent management actually takes consideration, and we want to make sure that whatever somebody has given us their consent for using their data is only used for that particular purpose. So for us in Pintax, right, so it's the data journey when we actually acquire the data. So we only acquire data that's actually going to be necessary for doing that particular transaction, the payment transaction. So we do not necessarily need to basically collect his other financial data. That, for example, if he just doing a credit card transaction, we do not need to collect his banking information. But what happens is that along with certain of this data, the KYC data we collect, all of this gets so humongous that it becomes difficult to control and manage. So it's always important for us to minimize basically the data that we actually collect, and of course have a very good strategy, which is a combination of technology, process, controls, that can actually protect the privacy of the data. Apart from that, I think it's very important from time to time review basically your controls, make sure that all controls are basically working to the best of their potential for us to ensure that, okay, it's not just a one-time activity, but it's a continuous exercise that potentially does not have an end, because as long as we are actually collecting data, it needs security, it needs controls that can ensure its privacy.
Absolutely, and well said. In terms of securing a financial data is so important and I would say critical for us as a economy and a country, and that's where I think Avesh comes your solutions where organizations look forward how they can feel safe, secure in dealing with data. So your thoughts on this?
See, first of all, thank you very much. Hi everyone, good evening. First of all, we need to make sure that what is happening around, we should be aware of it. Like from data perspective, if we just take last year into consideration, millions of dollars are paid in ransoms. And there is a huge financial incentives for the bad guys who are doing it. On top of it, if you look at broadly on this particular subject, there is very less convictions in this particular case. There are very few arrests that had happened. There are very few prosecutions or, punishments in this part. So the bad guys who are into this zone of they're trying to do and steal data and, trying to manipulate stuff, they are getting a lot of financial gains out of it. So for them, it makes a lot of sense. Whereas the companies like us who are helping the good guys in, we are trying every possible bit, because the way attackers are advancing when they're trying to leak the data, trying to encrypt it, trying to make sure that the applications are not available for so and so reasons, we are making sure that we provide world-class solutions. Artificial intelligence is inculcated in our products since last 6 years now. People are talking about it. It's a new hype for the industry. But from last 6 years, we have infused our solutions with AI and ML algorithms. On top of it, we have launched something called as Epic AI. Now, I don't want to be specific to what we are doing in the industry, but from an overall general consensus perspective, the data security is something which is the top-notch priority. So I was talking in one of the conference last month, which is regarding the healthcare. It was a health summit. And I see a lot of good plans from Indian government. They are taking very good steps into this space, and they are trying to make sure that they release some policies just like HIPAA for healthcare and GDPR like European Union. So they are doing every possible stuff. There are a lot of things as a framework that has been submitted already, and we are very positive about it. Once it comes into the play, maybe it will help organizations to have better security in place.
Yeah. I think that's good to know that at least there's some layer of safety, security around our data. And it's always the bad guys who get all the limelight in all the conversations. So good to have some good guys talking about data security and giving that confidence that, yeah, there is someone to protect. And I think taking that cue to Sandeep also in terms of the security of data, how critical it is and how organizations should be able to manage and run that show.
Sure. So first of all, good evening everyone, and thank you for that question. So I have slightly different thoughts, but yes, as the team panelists just talked about that, it actually matters based on every industry. Like I think Hiral sir just spoke about from a fintech world, why data is different. That data is entirely different, right? But from a cybersecurity point of view, if I just look at, we are trying to understand or today I think there are different ways in which everybody is securing data, but if there is a kind of a data protection as a strategy, if you're building it, right? Again, data is different, but however, if there is a kind of a data protection strategy which every company is building it, because where does end of the day, every company for that matter would needs, I think Avish also just mentioned about that, visibility is absolutely important, right, from a data perspective. Again, irrespective of the verticals what you're working on. But today, if you have a good visibility with respect to what data is there at the endpoint level, which is the key asset for any organization, what data resides at my endpoint level, what data traverses at my network level, what data is actually people are accessing. Let's say I have a SaaS-based email platform, and there is different ways in which I can store information on those SaaS platforms, share it with my external collaborators. There are different ways and means of that. So today, data visibility is absolutely important, and one of the biggest challenge areas what customers have been calling about is on the cloud side as well. Because today, if you look at that, adoption is very large, and the amount of databases which end up using on the cloud, or let's say the kind of data sharing what happens at the cloud level, that is also enormous. While we can put restrictive controls or preventive controls at the network side of things or endpoint side of things, or maybe an email side of things. On the cloud side also, we should have a good data protection strategy at the cloud level. So we have touched upon 4 areas now. Endpoint, there are controls, which is, I'll not get into the technicalities, but there are controls in place. Network, if you are starting monitoring each and everything what at the network level which is happening. Let's say I may be a developer accessing my corporate GitHub application or a Bitbucket application, or is there from an AI point of view, I can also have an enterprise version of ChatGPT, for example, right? Are we something which you're using internally, or as a developer or as any third party or any employee can use a commercial version of a AI platform or a LLM module? That is a risky proposition as well. So from an org point of view, if we can differentiate what the data is all about, how do you can differentiate whether it is a personal data or an official data, where is this data getting transferred on the fly? At the cloud level, what is happening, what somebody have a visibility in terms of what is happening at the cloud level, that is a good data protection strategy to start with. So visibility base for anything to start with, irrespective of data, it could be anything else. Visibility, I feel it's key. I think that's a starting point where we can start building data protection strategies.
Great. I think coming to the basics of visibility is what is the key to any strategy which you put across. And so one of the points which came across in our conversation was on the regulations, requirements coming from the legal authorities. So Suprakash, how do you see those things coming in India, and especially from regulations around DPDP coming in on impact on the data privacy and the way organizations take that subject?
Right, very relevant question. So these data privacy rules now is coming into play in India. You know that DPDP, which is getting passed in Parliament. So digital privacy data protection. So they're talking about the digital data privacy. So not the physical one, but that is the rules and regulation is coming. European country has a GDPR, and Australian country, US country, Canadian country. So everywhere there is a privacy rules. So how we see this, because India became a hub of international business. We process the data from various countries across the border. So what we do in our typical BPO industries, we first go for the DPIA analysis, so data processing impact analysis. So on that we ensure that how we are collecting the data, how we are processing the data, how we are transferring the data, and how we are destroying the data. So I think some of the panelists who are mentioning about the data retention, rights for forget, rights for information. So that are all come in the consolidated DPIA form. So whenever any PII information is coming, and whenever you are processing any PII information, basically this personally identified information, name, address, telephone address, by which you can identify the person, it is very important. First, let us do the DPIA analysis, understand the processing, and then deletion, transferring process. Based on that, go to the mitigation plan. Get the consent from the client. If you cannot mitigate the risk, get the consent from the client that we are taking your data and keeping it safely, or I'll take you to the private, with your permission, I'll be taking the data from the marketing purpose. So that is the one way how we can beat these regulations, because if the regulation penalty comes, it comes in a huge, the business reputation loss and the monetary loss all are there, and that is the way to deal with different kind of rules which is coming. That is the basic.
Sure, I think good to know the kind of regulations coming in India also. to make data privacy as a subject which will be taken seriously now. So Manoj, one of the aspects which Suprakash also touched was on the data destruction. And I'm sure the laws and the rules will also be framed in terms of how you destroy data once it is not required, or what are the requirements from the regulation perspective on this aspect which you want to highlight?
Yeah, as Mr. Goa said that in the DPDP Act which is being passed in 2023, so whether it is a DPDP Act or any other country's act, every digital protection, data protection law says that the individual has a right to ask for that his data should be deleted after a particular work is over. So in case, now if you go to any hotel or anywhere, you give your information, you give your Aadhaar card or your identity, and they do send a feedback to you, but you never, as an individual, you never put a line there that please delete my data as I have already taken the service. So in a society, it is not only the government who needs to lay down those rules. We as an individual, we as an organization needs to ensure that we should be a part of this, and needs to ensure that we should demand for this. That awareness is not at all there. We need to create that culture of demanding that our data should be wiped, because this is no more required by the organization. On the other hand, the organization needs to have those controls in place so that those data can be wiped beyond recovery. So there is a difference between deletion of data and wiping of data. Generally, people has a perception that once the data is deleted, it will never come back again. See, we are into the industry of data recovery also since last 31 years. We are not going to do a magic if a data is deleted and we can recover it. The data is still there. It's not being wiped off. So as an organization, if a customer is demanding that the data should be wiped, the organization should have a process in place wherein they should wipe the data as per the request of the customer. As Mr. Lone also said that the data should be used for that purpose only. People do not, actually they use it for marketing purpose only. Today, in today's scenario, if you apply for a single loan, how you get hundreds of calls once you apply for a loan? That's a major problem. So organization needs to be responsible enough not to do only the ethical practices and not to use the data for the purpose other than which it is being collected. So one should wipe the data beyond recovery. That should be there, in their controls and their policies.
That's something which organizations will be an eye-opener for all of us, that a data deleted is actually not gone out of the system, it's still there. So that reminds me of how we used to do delete and use recycle bin, and so that's something good for data at an organization level also. And when it comes to data floating across many countries, Hilal, and regulations, compliances across industries, for you, will it be such a challenging task dealing with so many regulations across countries, across sectors, with a very deep lens of eyes? How do you see this aspect?
Yeah, interesting. So before the announcement of DPDPA, right? So, and it started actually disrupting my sleep, right? So before that, we did actually have a process in place to basically like ensure that, okay, we have some visibility or some kind of coverage for cross-border compliance or cross-border transactions, right? So fortunately for us, we used to basically do transactions that were international in nature. So we were subjected to a lot of different types of data protection laws and data privacy laws, including like GDPR and CPP and things like that. So one of the interesting things was that like when we are doing this GDPR assessment, we did not do it because we thought that, okay, it's going to basically make our product better or it's going to be something that will be useful for the users or something like that. It was basically done because we could not do cross-border transactions unless like we showed the certificate compliance with some of these laws. So, which was interesting because if a business actually depends on a certification authority to allow them to do business by having these controls in place, that's actually really, really great, right? And I think that was something that our organization and organization who are in that kind of business make an effort to basically like ensure that, okay, those kind of guardrails are in place. So I do believe that like when we are basically doing cross-border business, right? So we have international business going on and we might have presence in different countries, right? It's difficult to find that baseline. So how did we actually like counter that was basically like we thought, okay, you know what? GDPR seems to be the most stringent privacy control framework anywhere in the world. So let's start with, let's make that as our baseline. So then we started this exercise like a couple of years back, at least 2 years back. And we started basically analyzing our infrastructure and we sort of like worked with a partner who was experienced in basically doing GDPR compliance. So his inputs were required to ensure that, okay, we do the activities that are required of us to basically be compliant with GDPR requirements. So one of them, I mean, not just one of them, but a bunch of requirements that came out of GDPR, we were not practicing at that time. So that gap assessment report that came out of it was extremely helpful in actually getting us somewhere near the compliance levels. So our business, if it has to sustain on an international level, there is for India, like for example, the DPDA came, like it has been like 1 year in discussion. We are still waiting for the rules. Hopefully the rules will be announced sometime very soon. I don't think like I will see them, but whatever. Hopefully they will come, right? So, but the other countries do not wait for it. They already have rules. They already have regulations. They already have enforcement of those rules, right? So you can't do your business with as much flexibility as we do here. So I think it's important to understand that regardless of basically like your requirement towards compliance of those rules, it's always going to be in the interest of your business to be compliant. So don't wait for the rules to come in. Don't wait for somebody else to tell you, okay, you need to be compliant with the laws. So just be proactive about it. And if you basically bake that in, if you make sure that that's part of your business, rest of the things become a lot more easier for you because that becomes like your KPI that you need to basically achieve in order for you to maintain your license, maintain your revenue, maintain your user base, all of that. So I think that's the strategy that we followed, and so far it has been successful because it had an additional benefit, right? So when the DPDPA was announced, we were already most of the rules were already compliant. So 90% of work we had already done basically like when we are doing the GDPR. So that was a really, really good byproduct for us to have, and I think that's the way to go about it.
That's a good point, Hilal, that I mean, you have to be proactive, and that's how most of the organizations still wait for that D-Day to happen when the rules will be out and it will lighten up the world and everybody will know what to do in a day or two. Whereas it's a very, very long journey which everyone has to start doing it now itself instead of waiting for the rules. Good point. Avish, from your perspective in terms of regulations, compliances being there, and it's multi-country, multi-industry, I would say cross industries. There are industry and sectoral specific requirements, regulations on data, then there is country specific. So how does it become difficult or easy for solutions and technologies to help organizations in dealing with those?
Nitin, when we are meeting CTOs today, we are not discussing the need of data privacy or data security. Everybody is on board. They know the importance. But the challenge comes when, we basically have to take care of the organizations that are smaller in nature. If you look at last year in view, maybe I think 80% of the attacks that we have seen were targeted towards the smaller or mid-sized organizations, which was not the scene before. Now, why these organizations are being attacked? Probably because they don't have proper security framework in place. Probably cyber security is their third or fourth priority. Maybe because of razor thin margins and financial gains that they have. So we, as a community, as cyber security community, we need to do something voluntarily for these people to make sure that the baseline that Hilal was discussing, that there has to be certain baseline where we need to make sure that everybody come up to a level of cyber security, that this is the least protection you should have in order to run the businesses. And I'll just give you an example from a healthcare. Like, it's not the major institutions that are being attacked. It's the entire ecosystem, right from IT, blood, biotech, pharma, labs, everything. It's an entire ecosystem which is being attacked. And there is an interdependency, between the major organization and these small entities. So we are on a mission to become a check post between the bad guys and the application that is basically providing services to the customers. On top of it, I'm not sure if people are aware about it. There are hacktivist groups who are participating big time now. If you look at, again, healthcare, just, I don't know, I'm coming from that summit, every example coming from healthcare side. But if you go 10, 15 years back, healthcare was never part of any attack campaign. Like, there is a certain sense of sanctity that will not touch healthcare, It's not something to bother about, and people are not worried about it. But take last 2 or 3 years into consideration. I think this is one of the most targeted, organizations, across the globe. Healthcare is the most targeted organization. And why? Because there are a lot of financial incentives for the bad guys. It's a juicy target. I think one of the largest institutions in India, $25 million was asked as part of ransom, right? Without naming it, I'm telling you. So this is the scene we are sitting right now. So attackers, wherever they find money or where there is an ideological movement like hacktivism, they basically target the organization that they find will provide them most financial incentives.
I think that's the key perspective which you have brought in terms of the small and the medium sectors are being targeted more now compared to the large ones which are already fortified and protected with a lot of solutions, technologies. Sandeep, are you also seeing this kind of trend where solutions, technologies will play a role for us as a country to protect our small, medium enterprises, and what as a solution provider, as a community, people are doing, which Avesh raised?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I think what are the points the team said, I think it's pretty relevant. Again, initially I spoke about from our controls what is possible, or a strategy what you can build in. That's something which we already spoke about. And what we have also ensured is, I think Hiral sir spoke about that. We also have looking about, for example, let's say, how do we build the privacy by design? For example, every vendor will go through this. I'm sure Avish in his organization will be going through. In the sense, we are processing a huge amount of traffic, customer traffic. Let's say today, 8,500 plus customers across the globe. It's close to around 600 billion plus signals on a daily basis. So which means you are seeing too much of transactions on the cloud from a data center cloud point of view, what I'm referring to. So which means end of the day, I need to be very sure that what are the controls which I have in place for customers. It's ensuring there is a privacy also taken care. I think sir also just mentioned about that when the data should be wiped out, till what time the data should be kept. So that's something privacy by design has to be taken care. I'm sure that's something which everybody strives on. On the other part, as I said, an entry point to an organization could be multiple ways. I'll not repeat the first statement what I said, but today if you look at, there are empty number of points where you can enter an environment. While we are speaking offline, I think Manoj sir, you spoke about how do you land and expand within an organization, right? But today, as I said, to enter a company, this could be a genuine developer who's working, or let's say he's spun up a new instance on the cloud just for testing, maybe a UAT kind of an environment. But ideally, that environment should be shut down after the testing is done. But what if the environment is kept open? That could be an entry point. And today what happens is everything is cross-connected. The cloud is connected to your every instance. Users are connected to the cloud. So it's very easy that if I touch base on one small application which may not be relevant, and Avish spoke about from an SMB point of view, it's much more relevant there as well. maybe a smaller workload, which may be not well-known workload, just a testing kind of a workload. But if I can spread from that environment all the way to internally, end of the day, outcome is data exfiltration. That's something which we are talking about. And if we can move across laterally within the company, touch the critical access layer, what we wanted, or the crown jewel, what we want to take the data out, that's the biggest problem statement what we have. And I think every technology vendor is striving towards that. Whoever is working on data protection as a strategy, compliance is by default, it's obvious by design that should be there. But these are the controls what should be in place. I'm sure every company is also working on the same lines to ensure a healthy data privacy within the company.
Thanks, Sandeep. And I think good perspectives coming from all of you and insights which I'm sure audience would be able to acknowledge and take something back. Any questions from audience for our eminent panelist in terms of, yeah, I can see a hand raised here, please. Just a minute, I think he's arranging a mic.
Thank you. One side you have discussed that with this policy, if somebody wishes his data to be deleted, we have to keep quiet. At the other side, financial people say for 7 years you have to keep the data. So which supersedes the other? Because now we are in the transition phase. At the same time, whether we keep it at archive level or it has to be in the production level, I mean, anybody?
I think Manoj.
Yeah. See, whenever a data is collected from a source, from anyone, it's, as Mr. Sandeep also said, that, it's being kept at multiple places. It's not only a single place where the data is kept. So whenever the data is not live, the way I said, that, as a individual, you must ask that my data should be deleted as I have stopped taking the services or my services are completed. So the active data in any case should be deleted, wherein none of the marketing people, none of the user can, touch that data. It is only the financial data, because it's a financial liability. Who says the data should be there? The financial, income tax says the data should be there. It should be there with the finance team only. So there should be control, as Sandeep said, there should be control on the data points at different places. So because once the data goes to, it is controlled at one point, there is a very less chances that it gets out of the system. And then after the data is being used by the, finance, it must be encrypted and stored in a archival data only, which is not connected most of the time on the internet. So that reduces the chances, that reduces the risk of getting compromised.
I see one more hand, maybe the last question.
Hello. Yeah. Good evening, panelists. Thank you for addressing your queries. So I come from FMCG company, Bajbaj Refineries Limited. We are into edible oil refining, and we mostly have distributors who usually like to give their data on WhatsApp. Now, from our perspective, we store the data on ERP, and we would like to give them that sort of security that we are not going to keep your data. But the thing is, when they share it with our team, they like to share it on WhatsApp, and when we try to spread that sort of awareness, they say it's very inconvenient and we do not like to fill up the lengthy forms, which would be coming in a secure flow that we can use in the industry. So how do we create that sort of awareness among the consumers where they want to securely send the data instead of giving it on WhatsApp, which again, can be circulated anywhere?
Sure. So first of all, I do agree with you, right? So WhatsApp is not the best medium to share data, right? So, and there is no good solution for basically making sure that any data that comes through WhatsApp is properly protected and sanitized, right? So there's no way to do it, and because it's so open, it becomes very difficult to manage it as well. So I think normally like what we do actually, like for example, for any kind of unmanaged data, because this is unmanaged data. So whatever we actually procure, so we tend to basically like make sure that, okay, there is some level of monitoring and some level of visibility and some definitive control about it. Say, for example, how we do it is basically like make sure that only limited number of people can actually do that kind of communication. And those people who are going to be doing that communication, it's their responsibility to ensure that, okay, the security and the sanctity of the data is maintained. Now, how do you make sure that, okay, your partners or your people who are going to be sending that data to you, ensure that, okay, they send it to a protected medium. Say, for example, they can upload to a secure drive, or they can use some protocols that are going to be more secure than others, right? Or which may not be public medium, for example. So it depends on basically how are you consuming that data. So if you have an automated way of, if you have a basically like if you have the capacity to consume the data directly, so when there is no human intervention is actually required, so it all makes sense to have an automated way of doing that. So if there is human intervention is required, somebody has to look at the data, verify and validate that the data is accuracy and things like that. In that context, it should not be just one person who is responsible for that. So now, how do you make your partners aware of that? Right? So that's actually a bigger challenge. And they may not have the tooling necessary to, or even the education necessary to basically upload to the cloud service, right? So it's important to basically create that kind of environment which is intuitive enough. Like, so for example, nobody taught me how to use WhatsApp, or nobody taught anybody how to use WhatsApp, but we are all experts on sending message through WhatsApp. So why is that? Because it's very intuitive surface. You just log into it and just start sending messages, right? So it's the simplifying of that process, simplifying of tools is equally important. The more simple, the more the simplicity in the usage of the tools, the more adoption it will get from the customers and your partners. So it's very important that you not only have a good, basically secure medium of uploading it, but it also needs to be simple, because the maturity in your customer base might not be equal. There will be people who will be much more proficient, and there may be people who may not have any proficiency at all. So it's very important to have that intuitive interface through which actually they can send their data. I'm not sure if that's the answer that you're looking for, but that's the best I can do. But again, if you want to have more discussion, I will be more than happy to talk to you about it.
Thank you. We'll try to simplify things if wherever possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I think with this wonderful session and getting so much of insights from our eminent panelists, and while we wait for the DPDP rules, there will be some initiatives being taken to ensure that data privacy is taken and given the respect which it deserves. Thank you for a lovely audience, and thank you ABB for organizing this wonderful event. And thank you, my dear colleague panelists. Thank you very much for your views. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I request Mr. Dhruva Mukherjee to kindly come on stage and do the honors of felicitating our chairperson and moderator and our speakers here today. We'd like to thank our chairperson and moderator, Mr. Nitin Jhunjhunwala. Thank you very much, sir. And we thank our speakers, Mr. Manoj Dhingra, Mr. Suprakash Guha, Mr. Hilal Lone, Mr. Avesh Malik, and Mr. Sandeep CV. Thank you very much, sirs. You have given us the reason to contemplate and to introspect on many different matters. Thank you. This, I'm sure all of you will agree, the CISO panel, data privacy and data for good, has been a very interesting panel. We request the gentleman to kindly come forward for a photo opportunity. Thank you for your gracious presence. To each one of our participants of this CISO panel, we request you to kindly take your seats in the auditorium. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.